So we're going to be doing a series about building better boys, right?
Wow.
And I know that's a passion for both of you. So Franklin, you want to talk about that first, and then I'd love to hear what Thunderburke
Sure. Before I do, let me just read a verse, if I may. And Psalm 78, verse, hallelujah to the Lamb, verse 5, it says, "For he established a testimony in Jacob," that's Israel, "and appointed a law in Israel, which he commanded our fathers, that they should make them known to their children, that the generation to come might know them, even the children which should be born, who should arise and declare them to their children." So, with that verse being read, a verse has been read, I think the issue is when it comes to building better boys, we have not passed on the tool that our parents gave us. Somehow the transmission of truth has been locked up. So in order to build better boys, we have to transmit this truth to the next generation. So Derek Prince, we all know of him, right?
Yeah.
He mentioned that the problem in our world today is because there's bad fathers and bad husbands. He said our society is sick because of delinquency. And I say that delinquency is a result of daddies being practicing perhaps a dereliction in their duty. Because they have not discharged their duties, our boys are delinquent. And that's why we have delinquent boys. Bad dads and bad husbands equals delinquency. Delinquency equals a messed up society. So that's why things are the way they are. It's because fathers did not transmit truth as it was given to them, or fathers never had truth.
That's exactly right, the delinquency.
Yeah.
And look up Malachi chapter 4, verses 5 through 6. So I grew up in a fatherless home.
Okay.
I grew up in the housing projects here in Columbus, Ohio, and roughly 80-90% of the folks in my neighborhood grew up in a single-parent household. And I think it's equally problematic for both males and females without a father. And you think about deep-rooted daddy issues, which is what I call, is really at the crux of most of the problems.
Yeah.
Because I think whenever you have deep-rooted daddy issues, the resulting problem is really personal brokenness. And one of three outcomes usually happens when you have personal brokenness. Number one is you're going to hurt others or you're going to hurt yourself. So you go on this campaign, whether it's sexual abuse, emotional abuse, whatever, you're going to just hurt other people. It can be abuse on the internet, all those things, social media, because you're lashing out because you have so much pain, or you're going to hurt yourself in terms of sexual promiscuity, drugs, alcohol abuse, whatever the case may be, you're going to do this to them. Second one is you're going to seek validation in the eyes of others.
Yes.
Whenever you don't have a father to validate you and to affirm you, to appreciate you, you always look for value somewhere else.
That's good.
And particularly for me, it was basketball. I love the applause of people, right? And particularly of women. You know, you like that because, you know, you didn't get that. So you gravitate to some of those addictive behaviors. And the third thing is you just check out on others. You give up on life. You go in prisons, you see guys, I don't care about nothing. I don't care about anything. I don't care because you have so much pain, you shell up. So daddy issues really are a problem. And that verse, can you read that verse there?
Sure. This is Malachi chapter 4, verse 5 and 6, correct? 4 and 4. Which one?
About the coming refrigerator.
Okay, sure. Okay, verse 5 says, "Behold, I will send you Elijah the prophet before the coming of the great and dreadful day of the Lord. And he shall return, and he shall turn the heart of the fathers to the children, and the heart of the children to their fathers, lest I come and smite the earth with a curse." Very good.
Daddy issues are a curse.
Right, wow. Oh my goodness.
They're a curse. So if you think about what is actually resulting, it's actually a curse. And that, you know, when Paul talked in Ephesians about, as parents, we tend to run to the verses in terms of try to get our kids to be obedient to us, right? Honor your mother and thy father, that day shall be long on earth. But it says too, parents, fathers, do not exasperate your children.
Yes.
So who he singles out speaks volumes about who he doesn't single out, right? And obviously fathers, he does single us out, and particularly that, turning your hearts of the children to the fathers and the father to the children is a big issue in Jesus' day, and it's an end time. And this is an end time prophecy, but we're looking, who's the Antichrist? When is Jesus coming back? We can look at this verse and say deep-rooted daddy issues are really a sign of the end time ministry that we're supposed to be dealing with.
When he talked about the validation of the fathers, that really struck me because what I thought about was the verse in Matthew 3 before Jesus goes into the wilderness and to suffer and to be tempted, his dad validates him. It is very important that we see it that way. It says, and this is my beloved son, in whom I am well pleased. After God makes the validation on his son, he releases his son for tribulation. So there's a validation that served as insulation for the tribulation that Christ went through into the wilderness. So it's hard for anybody to go in this mean, ferocious world without having a dad's validation. And when God the Father said to the Son, I'm well pleased with him, I promise you, every son or daughter needs to hear something that the dad, not mom. Mom is great, but I promise you, when a father validates a son, it makes a difference. So when you talk about our program, ABC, All Boys Clinic, if anybody knows what clinic does, Mr. Fundy does. He knows how to do a clinic. He knows how to train. He knows how to make camp. He knows how to set up structure for kids from a basketball perspective, not just that, but also from a behavioral perspective. So when we say that we're going to develop a program, ABC, All Boys Clinic, I promise you, for boys whose fathers are deceased, or boys whose fathers are incarcerated, we're going to be that dad to validate that boy. So listen, you're handsome, you're strong-willed, you're strong-minded, you're smart, you're intelligent, and you're a good kid. That's what he needs to hear. And I promise you, every Saturday morning, we give you the dates as they come, but every Saturday morning from 10 to 12:30, we're going to have a clinic for boys, ABC, All Boys Clinic. And someone said, well, what about girls? My daughter needs just as much validation as Mr. Fundy just mentioned. Well, it's still going to be ABC now, but it becomes All Beauties Clinic, All Beauties Clinic. Either way it go, all boys, all beauties, we're going to understand why it's important to develop. Yes. Listen, boys don't just grow, they must be groomed. And that grooming takes pruning. I think you hit on that when he taught, because it's not just growing, it's grooming. Grooming, you got to prune, you got to cut, you got to chastise, you got to make correction, but out of love. So yes, Rosina, I tell you that the All Boys Clinic is going to be very, very powerful. I can hardly wait. Next month.
Fantastic.
Let me say, when you talked about that also, isolation and destination. So Jesus, when he was isolated too, but his dad, he knew his dad was there. He knew, so he had that covering. And then his destination, because he had a destination, and obviously to be seated at the right hand of God the Father.
That's good.
So if you don't have that, look where you try to get it, particularly in our community. I'm talking about inner city communities. We look for that validation and affirmation in all the wrong places.
Absolutely.
Drug dealers, gangbangers, women. I mean, all of these different assets, for cars, clothes, all of these things to give us that validation and affirmation. So it's very important that we get it from an authentic perspective, particularly that's biblically based, which is what he's talking about.
You know, so powerful. This morning, I got a call, and this gentleman was crying when he called me, just in tears, broken down. He said, Frank, I'm thinking about killing myself. He says, my wife is gone. He says, and I want to die this morning. And I said, you can't do that to yourself. I said, if you die, I say, the pain that you have, can you imagine how much pain your wife is going to have, your brother's going to have, your mother's going to have, other friends of yours? I said, you can't do that. I said, I will come and pick you up. So he and I talked on the phone. He said, well, if you just talk with me and pray for me, I think I can make it. So I spoke with him, prayed, and apparently he's doing well. He didn't have a Bible in his house. He asked for a Bible. And I looked at him because I know this kid. He moved here from Mississippi. And I know his history. And I just say, wow, there's so many tools that he doesn't have. That if he had, he would never talk suicidal ideation. It'll never come to his mind, honestly, because suicide is a way of saying I'm hopeless. And any kid, he may be in hell. He may be in the worst condition of his life. But if his spirit is really where it should be, he will never, ever turn within himself or turn against himself. He will always say, my hope is in God. So I tell you, Rosina, it's so important that boys become built. See, because, they say tough. The Ford truck is what? What says? Built tough. Built tough. That's how boys should be. We should be built to carry loads. And what's happening, these young boys are receiving a load, but they don't have the suspension, they don't have the torque, they don't have the capacity, they don't have the horsepower to pull it. So as a result of that, they collapse.
Yeah,
They collapse because they don't have what it takes to pull their load. So this all boys clinic, we're going to be proactive. We're not waiting for something to happen. We're going to build them because we know something is going to happen. So as parents, I encourage you to look us up. Surely you want to know more about the ABC, and you'll see more about it. And I'm just so thankful to have men like Mr. Fundy, a great minister of the Lord who loves God, who's willing to give his all to pour into young boys. So that's what's happening. This is going to be great. I promise you. I'm talking about we're not doing it for money. We're not doing it for fame. We're doing it because we understand our responsibility is to pour back into boys. James says, pure religion and undefiled before the Father is this, to visit the orphans and widows in their affliction, and to keep himself unspotted from the world. Right. So Jesus has mandated us that we should be proactive in helping our boys.
Amen.